Hello guys, welcome back to Not Just Make. It's Marco here, and today I'll start a mini-series about working on a 75mm display model. I'm really excited for this project. I love the model, and after some theory it's always good to come back to the painting table to translate all the stuff into something real. This is the first episode of, I think, 4-part series that will be on the channel for the next few weeks, about me building and painting a cool 75mm model in high quality. I hope. It's a huge topic with its own mindset and techniques, so better to see it with a lot of real work and explanations on top of it. Working on this kind of models, you have a bigger canvas and much more freedom, and you can learn a lot and transfer the new skills to any scale. I really hope you like it, because I love working on large-scale models, even 1/4 scale models. So in reality, 75mm for me is still in the small-scale realm. Remember to subscribe, hit the bell button, and check the links down below in the description. And if you want to support the channel and my work, check the Patreon page and its rewards. Thanks a million, guys. Here is the big project. Leicester Marshall from Kimera model. It's a 75mm model, 1/24 scale, from the Aridam line, their post-apocalyptic diesel punk series of models. Let's see what's inside. Everything is protected by 2 layers of dense foam, and obviously you don't have sprues for this kind of models. Here is the base, and I probably have to order a new plinth for this huge base, because I don't have anything this big in my stash. You can choose between 2 heads, and I'll go for the one with the cool gas mask. The model is casted in resin, and the small thin parts with a lot of details like the gas mask tubes and the mechanical parts of the right leg are made in white metal. I love this choice because it's very easy to break these parts where they are made in resin, even just during shipping inside their box. Inside you have this flyer with the name of the model, its story in the back, and a 360 of the box art as reference and a sort of instructions to see all the pieces together. You usually don't have instructions in this kind of kits, but it's pretty easy to understand where everything should go. In the central part you have also some cool concept art for extra inspiration. The first thing to do is to understand the relations between the various pieces. As said, you don't really need instructions to figure out where to put every single piece, but you have to understand the right order of construction. It's particularly important on the lower parts, because there's a tight relation between the apron and the extra part of the leg machinery. It's also important to understand what will be visible or not in the final model, so you can really focus your efforts in the right spots. Let's start cleaning. Removing mold residues and seam lines is always the most important step while working on any kind of scale and model. Not even the best paint job can compensate for the presence of an ugly mold line. My tools for this step are a chip cutter, a pair of nippers, and a big brush to remove dust and little pieces of resin. This is all you need. I like to use files, especially metal files, because they are very aggressive and it's very easy to alter to match the shape of a piece while cleaning. Exactly like working on plastic, you can just use the cutter to remove any imperfection, gently scrubbing the surface. You just need a fresh new blade without imperfections on the edge. Always check like every single piece fits with each other. This is the step where we fix these kind of problems. I like to remove the sharp edges of big pegs and a small quantity of material in the top to slightly reduce their volume. This helps to gain a bit more tolerance in the junction, reducing the attrition between the parts, still maintaining the general strength of the peg and the surface for the glue. I do the same in push-fit models like the ones from Shadespire. I remove some plastic from both the junction points to ease the assembling and avoid gaps on the figure. Between the left shoulder and the arm, there's something not working very well. The line of the arm should disappear under the leather strap, but it doesn't fit perfectly. Even after reducing the peg, I still have the same kind of resistance. So, the problem is for sure inside the shoulder. Here I scrub the internal part of the junction, removing material all around the edge to make extra space for the arm. After a couple of minutes and some more tests, the arm fits perfectly in its spot. And this is what I have removed until now. You can use a toothpick to remove the thin resin flakes that usually remain in this kind of tight spots. They are so thin that just pressing they completely disappear. It's also important to check the lower part of the base. The borders are a bit raised because of the movement of the resin on the edges of the mold, so I like to remove this excess to have a perfectly flat surface and a tight bond with the plinth. For the same reason I scribe deep lines on this smooth and glossy surface, so the glue will have an extra rough surface to grab and the bond will be much more solid. As always, this is the best tool you can have in your studio. Test fit carefully also the metal parts. Things like these tubes in particular are quite soft and they can easily change their shape. Their positioning is very precise, so better test all the parts and bend them gently little by little to restore their perfect shape. Here I'm adding a real hole to the metal rod of his weapon. This will add a nice detail and some extra realism, and I'll have a hidden spot where to put a custom paint handle for the next steps. I want to support a bit more the backpack furnace, because I don't like to have only glue supporting this kind of big, heavier details. Here it's easy to perfectly match the two holes because you have the perfect impression of the back on the boiler. I use 0.9mm metal wire to make this kind of pins. For the same reasons, I decide later to pin also the torso with the leg parts. There's a lot of surface for the glue between the two parts, but this piece will be moved a lot and carried around in a magnetic box, and I don't want to risk anything. Here is more difficult to match precisely the position of the two holes, but I have a nice trick for these situations. Drill the hole in one of the two parts. Press a tiny piece of blue tack on the other part and fit them in the right position. When you separate the two parts, the blue tack will have a nice impression of the hole in the perfect place. With a pointy pencil, you just need to mark that point and you have your perfect match. Easy, nice and clean with no effort. Time for sanding. I usually use 400, 800 and 1000 grit for this kind of works. Higher number, finer paper. I did a lot of big 1/8 to 1/4 anime resin models in the past, so I'm quite an expert of this part. Here you don't have to use all the three papers because the cast is really good and most important is not a smooth girl. For those kind of kits you need a lot of sanding alternated with heavy priming to have a good surface to paint. But we'll see something like that for sure in the next future of the channel. And I'm not only sanding, but wet sanding. This is a nice technique used in car body shops to refine a surface, and it's super useful also for resin. I soak the sandpaper in water and I sand the parts of the model that I work with the cutter. The wet paper perfectly adapts to the movements and details of the surface, following their shapes. The water on the surface helps controlling the attrition and catches all the fine resin dust. So you don't have to wear a mask to protect yourself or have your workspace covered in superfine white dust, almost impossible to clean. This way I don't have a flat edge where I sand, but gentle, smooth shapes. Next vital step for resin is to wash the pieces. Simple water at room temperature and dish soap will do the job. I use a toothbrush to rub every single piece, but don't use your toothbrush. You want to get rid of the residues of dust produced while sanding and all the oily substances that are on the resin, including your finger oils. If it's not perfectly mixed, resin can continue sweating an oily residue for months, so cleaning is essential. Yes, Forgeward, we are talking about you. Let's take a moment to thank my best patrons. It's thanks to your incredible support that I'm able to do this every week. Thank you so much, guys! It's finally time to build. I really don't like to paint my models in separate pieces. It's easy to lose sight of the module volumes and relations with light working on separate sections, and I totally hate to work with glues and putties around a painted model, so I'll put together everything I can, leaving separate just a few obvious pieces. The perfect glue for resin is super glue, and I use an activator to speed up things. It's not so important with resin because it's usually instantly bound by the glue, but it will change your life if you work with metal models. You have to be careful here because you don't want to go back cleaning unwanted residues of glue. I put a drop of glue in the center of the piece and I create a uniform thin layer using a toothpick to have a really precise control over its flow. Respect the order and always test fit first to be super sure about the final positioning. For difficult spots, I put some glue on a piece of parchment paper and I apply it to the surface with a toothpick to avoid any mistake. Here I'm trying to decide what to do with the ends. I like to keep all the skin together to be able to paint all the tones in the right spots and with the right light, but the flag in the left end can be tricky to paint on the model, so at the last moment I decided to glue only the right end. And here is the model with all its core parts mounted and on my paint handle. This is a brilliant creation by Dino Pivato. He makes the best plinths and carry boxes, and most important, is an awesome human being. Time to fix all the gaps with milliput. Even if every piece fits perfectly together, this step is really important to make disappear even the slightest clue of the presence of junction points. Suspension of disbelief is important also in miniatures, and you need to sell the idea of this character with every possible trick. You know how it works, and if you need more details, you have an entire video all about milliput. Dose the two parts. Mix them well. Don't freak out because I don't use gloves, it's not a big deal. Prepare a nice donut and add alcohol. Mix it well with an old brush to create a smooth paste. And thanks to one of you, it's officially named Millibutter. Changing the dilution, you can create a variety of different consistency to fix any problem on the model. Another cool feature of milliput is that in this step you can easily clean the surface with a brush or a Q-tip. This way you can leave the milliput only in difficult spots and have all the surroundings totally clean. Even a big gap like this one on the left side, it's easily fixed in this way. Even when diluted, especially using isopropyl alcohol that evaporates super quickly, milliput dries in a couple of hours, and if you need, you can sand again the surface to perfect even more its finish. One last trick. To better fix the right foot on the handle, I use Butyl. What is Butyl? Butyl rubber or butyl putty, or simply butyl, to the touch is similar to blue tack, but is much stronger and reliable.
Do you know when in movies, and also in reality, you see people attaching a block of C4 to a wall? Butyl is what keeps your bomb in place. Most commonly it's used to insulate windows, roofs and car windscreens, so you can imagine how strong and stable it is. It's a great tool to fix models to paint handles and to temporarily attach stuff but with a strong bond. I also use it to keep my cameras in difficult positions. And for the other pieces, I simply created nice handles with simple metal wire.
See you next week with the second part. If you like this video, give it a like and subscribe. You can always ask me anything down below with a comment and follow my projects during the week using one of my socials. And if you want to support the channel, check out the Patreon page and join the community. See you next week, guys.